if he's convicted of conduct that is tantamount to insurrection, the Supreme Court majority has effectively declared that even Congress would not have the authority to determine that he is ineligible, as the four justices said, a confirmed oath-breaking insurrectionist.
Now let's get more on the ruling from the US Supreme Court, which struck down a ruling in Colorado that Trump should not be on the ballot paper because of his role in inciting the riot at the US Capitol in January 2021. The decision clears the way for Mr. Trump to compete in the Colorado primary tomorrow, one of 15 states voting on Super Tuesday. And the results tomorrow night are likely to confirm that we're heading for a rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, each seeking a second term in the White House. Philip Lacovara is a former Deputy Solicitor General for the United States and joins us now. Good evening to you, Philip.
Good evening, Carol. Nice to talk with you.
Really good to speak to you. Just explain what you think is the significance of the US Supreme Court ruling today.
Well, there are two aspects to the ruling today. One was pretty much forecast, and that is that the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the state of Colorado cannot exclude Donald Trump from its primary election, which is taking place tomorrow, and neither can any other states. What was much more significant for Donald Trump, and what sparked basically objections from four of the justices, actually all four of the women justices, was that the court went out of its way to say not only do the states not have the power to exclude someone like Donald Trump from the ballot, but they said that the 14th Amendment disqualification clause is not enforceable at all against insurrectionists unless Congress passes legislation to set up a process for doing that. Now, what's significant about that is it means even if Donald Trump is found guilty in the pending case in Washington, that will have no effect on his eligibility to be elected president. And it also means that, according to the court's five-justice majority, even the Congress, when it comes to counting electoral votes, will not be allowed to enforce the 14th Amendment disqualification. So that's a major, major win for Donald Trump.
That is quite significant. What you're saying is that basically the court is not just saying that individual states can't bar a candidate. It's actually going further than that.
Yes, and that's why the four other justices vigorously objected, saying that this effectively reads out of the Constitution that very important clause that says anybody who's taken an oath to support the Constitution and then engages in or encourages insurrection is forever barred from holding government office again. The majority, the five of the nine justices, said basically that's an empty prohibition unless Congress enacts some process for making that determination. And nobody thinks, given the paralysis in the U.S. Congress these years, that that's likely to happen at any point in our lifetimes.
You mentioned a case coming up in Washington. Obviously, there are so many different legal battles, it's hard to keep up with them all. Explain what that's about.
Yes, that's the case arising out of the January 6, 2021 uprising at the U.S. Capitol. And Donald Trump is charged with fomenting that riot or that insurrection, as some have termed it, by encouraging the mob and by failing to ask his supporters to go home. And he's been indicted on 4 different counts for violating different federal laws for helping to interfere with the process by which Congress was supposed to count the votes cast by the states for the new president.
So that case, which is still pending, what you're saying is that today's Supreme Court ruling means that even if Donald Trump is found guilty on that, even if he's found guilty of inciting a riot, it wouldn't stop him from standing for president.
That's right. And not only doesn't it prevent him from standing for president, but one of the fallback arguments that some of the people have been raising about enforcement of the 14th Amendment is that ultimately, when after the election takes place, the ballots from the individual states go to Congress, and the votes are to be cast officially at that point. And at that point, it was thought Congress could determine whether or not any ballots for Trump are constitutionally valid um, or invalid if he, in fact, engaged in insurrection. So even if he's convicted of conduct that is tantamount to insurrection, the Supreme Court majority has effectively declared that even Congress would not have the authority to determine that he is ineligible, as the four justices said, a confirmed oath-breaking insurrectionist.
It is an extraordinary ruling. It's no surprise that Donald Trump was so pleased with the decision today. Do you think that that means that none of these legal battles, because there, as I mentioned, there are so many of them, none of them are going to stop him from being on the ballot paper in the presidential election and potentially getting back into the White House?
Yes, I think this is a major win for him, both legally and politically, because he can wave around the paper the Supreme Court opinion saying he's been vindicated, and this will allow him to convince his diehard faithful people that all of the rest of the legal matters that may go against him are simply beside the point, or they're ones that are just cooked up. But when it comes to the really important ones, he's on the right side of the law. So this is effectively a political get out of jail card for Donald Trump.
We know that, of course, the Supreme Court, quite a few of the people on it were actually put there by Donald Trump when he was last in power, and that is presumably, I mean, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, isn't it? So, its ruling essentially, I mean, there's no appeal against any of that, is there? That ruling is going to stand.
Yes, that's the last word, and Donald Trump has a clear and to most of us, most commentators, a surprisingly broad ruling. There, many people thought, and the four women justices who were unhappy thought that there would be a narrow decision simply saying states can't exclude people who are insurrectionists from running for federal office, including the presidency. But this ruling not only said that, but said that essentially nobody is in a position to declare a person in Donald Trump's position ineligible under the Constitution, despite what the terms of the Constitution say.
Just finally, we've got all these other cases, haven't we? We've got the case about him taking documents from the White House. We've had the case about the way he runs his businesses. There are so many different court cases still going on. Are any of them likely to cause him huge difficulties when it comes to pursuing his political ambitions to get back into the White House?
There's a slight possibility that it may make a difference to independent voters. And the independent voters in the United States are a major bloc. Most of the opinion polls either are surveying what Democrats think about Trump or what Republicans think about Trump. He's not going to lose any support among his faithful. Basically, the Republican Party consists now of people who have taken the effective blood oath to Donald Trump, and that's true in Republicans in Congress. But independents may be influenced by the cascading number of legal problems that Trump is facing around the country, involving personal business fraud, disregard of national security secrets, and in the Georgia case and in the Washington case, efforts to overthrow the results of the 2020 election.
So these cases might put off some voters, but none of them are going to lead to a legal bar on him running.
That's right. None of these will be a knockout blow for Donald Trump. They may be influential around the margin, but in a close election, as we've had in this country for the last 20 or 30 years, some marginal difference can be significant.
Philip Lacovara, former Deputy Solicitor General for the United States. Really good to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time and your insight.
You're very welcome.